everyone. I am ready to do another first listen, and this one I understand is from kind of later along, um, Beth Hart, and it's not a name that I know very well. I don't think I've ever heard any music by her, but I understand she's from the 90s and 2000s era, and I'm curious to see how it sounds. It's interesting. This isn't the name of a band. I don't even know if she has a band or if it's just her that is the identity of this. But the song I'm going to be listening to is called Caught Out in the Rain. So I know very little. Basically, I've told you everything I know. And let's see what happens when I listen to it and what I discover.
Every time he walks out the door, I wonder if it's ever.
That was a really interesting way of starting this song. I was trying to figure out, trying to process and understand if the song had really begun or if it was still kind of an introduction section. And the thing that was tricky for me to understand is because the voice seemed to be playing a sort of instrumental role in that portion where I couldn't figure out, am I supposed to be paying attention to the voice yet, or is this part of the introductory material fabric? And we've just now transitioned to the next portion of the music, and I guess I feel like musically it's a bit early for me to say this, but I do feel like that first bit of singing was a part of the introductory portion of the music, where it's like the song hadn't really quite begun yet, but at the same time, the voice was there. Very interesting little technique, I could say, to weave the singer's voice into the introductory material like that. I guess I want to back up and listen to that again just a little bit. So, in fact, I'm going to start at the very beginning. Because the other thing I noticed, and as I said, I don't know if this Beth Hart has a band or if it is just her with whatever instrumentalists she's chosen to back her up on this particular song. I don't know that. But I guess I might look it up, maybe even before I'm done here, because now I'm curious. But what I find interesting is that the introduction started with something that was very gentle, simple, synthesized. It kind of reminded me of the sort of sound quality that we might find if we're trying to portray perhaps a tropical rainforest scene where there are little drips of water hanging off of the dense foliage. Anyway, that was just a little image that came to my mind in the first few seconds of the piece before layers started coming in. So I'm going to start again because I want to hear that, and then I will listen to what happens as it goes on. It's like you can hear the water sliding and dripping downwards.
I'm under your spell.
And this voice, it doesn't really feel like the
Ain't nobody's business.
song has begun yet. It's still the introductory.
I'm already there.
Sort of meditation, like a pre-meditative moment before the song begins. And
Every
now
time he walks out the
everything
door,
begins. Now we're singing.
I wonder if it's ever coming back. I can't help but love the taste of danger, babe. And the how, and the wind, and the rough in his hands.
It's a very colorful voice.
Caught out in the rain. If I die, I don't care. I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love with this man. I got caught out in the rain. I heard him crying in his sleep last night. No man wants to be told that he been crying. When he wakes up, I tell him it's gonna be alright. But I know
Very
that he knows
descriptive
that I'm
in
just
the
lying.
vocal quality.
I heard he shot a man down in the street, and he tore his soul apart. Last night when he was making love to me, there was another woman in his heart. I got caught out in the rain. If I die, I don't care. I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love with this man. I got caught out in the rain.
Okay, I have to stop it because I'm processing these sounds as I'm listening, and I want to share a few things that I'm noticing. First of all, the instrumental part. I would very much call that accompaniment for the voice. And now I begin to understand why this is going by the name Beth Hart rather than some band name, because it is all about this voice. And this voice is really something. The shades and the colors and the tonal variations and the descriptiveness of the sound she produces. It's very agile. And I don't mean agile in the sense of lots of technical note fireworks, like singing a bunch of notes really fast. I don't mean that kind of agility. I mean the tonal agility, the agility to shift and shape the meaning of every little corner of the song simply by the sound she's producing. And that is really standing out to me as a huge feature of this music. And the instrumental portion of it, the guitar, the drums, the other sounds, which to me, I think that they're mostly produced with electronic instruments. Maybe it's a synthesizer keyboard, maybe it's, who knows how they're doing it, but the idea is that those are all simply there to fill out and provide a sound waves on which her voice can sail and ride. And it's kind of like, yeah, kind of like that. Like they are the water of the ocean, but she is the ship that is sailing on the ocean, and her voice is what we are following the progress of. The instruments become very unimportant in that regard, and they are not doing anything significant other than simply supporting her voice. Well, of course, there's the guitar solo, which we just passed, and I'll go back to that in a few minutes, but I'm going to finish going through this song before I go any further into this. There are a couple other things that I already want to say, so I'll save those to share in a few moments. But let's go on, now that you know kind of where my ears are taking me and what is standing out to me in this song, and see how it finishes up.
I'm in love.
this piece of music is interesting to me because it really pulled me into it, but it wasn't the musical elements, it was the voice that pulled me in. And it takes me back to the which is a very clear influence in this, is the blues element and some of those old blues singers, which again, I'm not super well versed in the blues style, but I have heard some blues in my life. I am passingly familiar, we shall say, with blues. And there's always this very, very visceral, cathartic feeling in their voice. And it just pulls you into this world of theirs and wraps it around you and ties you there, and you're just held there listening and completely immersed in that world that they create for you. And this song does that very much like those old blues singers did. And there's something very, very beautiful about that, I think. It's not something that one can sit down and analyze and say, well, okay, the music did this here and did that there, and these are the musical elements that give us this effect. It's a different type of musical skill, which is very, very hard to quantify, very hard to assess. And it's the artistic element of a performer. If this were sung by somebody who didn't give it that very raw passion, it would be really just another song that didn't really matter so much. Okay, the lyrics, yeah, they catch you. They do. But not really compellingly until the voice takes you in and says, this is my world, this is my life, this is my experience, and I am making you feel this experience with me. You are living it through my voice here. And we live it within that voice. It's like we become a part of the experience. We become partakers of that experience simply by hearing it and being surrounded by that sound. And that is something that I very, very, very much appreciate and love when I hear a musician. It's not all about fireworks and technical, flashy stuff. It is the ability to convey and engage in such a way that we feel and we sense and we live in this world. They use the music as a vehicle to take us somewhere. But it is very much dependent on their skill as an artist, whether we get there or not. And I have to say that this song with this singer does that very, very compellingly for me. And I love that about it. Musically, there's not a ton there other than that. Now, I don't mean that in a disparaging way. You don't need much else there. It's kind of like, well, if we go even further back in history, let's say we go back to the old Negro spirituals and plantation songs, which were born out of this incredibly dark experience. And when you hear some of those sung by a singer who can link themselves with that experience, either through the fact that they identify or they've had experiences in their own life, or they come from a a generational line of, if they're descendants of slaves, they feel that connection in a way that many of us cannot. And yet, because they feel it, and then they have the ability to use their voice or their instrument to carry us into it, they make us feel it too. And I have had that experience with listening to some singers of some of the old Negro spirituals, where you just feel like the pain and the agony of the experience is so intense simply by listening to that song. It's the same way here. I feel like Beth Hart is carrying us into this experience, and that it is an experience which she has lived, which she knows. Whether she experienced it herself or whether she is simply able to connect to it as an artist, however it is, when she is singing it, she is living it, because otherwise she would not be able to produce that effect. Again, going back to the instruments and the musical elements, very simple, very basic. I don't mean to dismiss them, because obviously they're doing their job very well. And even at the end here, well, I wanted to go back to a couple places. First of all, the guitar solo was very well done. It kind of continued this vocal line, and you could hear the same types of shifts and variations in the tone production that continued the emotions of the voice, even though the guitar is not singing words. And so I wanted to go back and listen to that. And then, as we come out of that guitar solo, I really appreciated the way it blended back in with the voice. And there was a special moment there where, a little segment of the music where I wanted to point out a couple melodic musical structural things which were highly effective in that moment. So let's see if I can find this guitar solo. I think it's here.
In the rain, in the rain.
Yes, here comes the guitar. It's like we're hearing it sing. And at the peak here, yes. As the guitar arrived at a sort of climax, it didn't break, meaning musically. I'm not now talking about the artistry, okay? I'm talking about the musical elements now. The music didn't break. It didn't give a guitar solo section that was all on its own, and then we have a little transition, and then the voice comes back in. No, as the guitar reached its climax, that was the moment at which the voice took it over seamlessly and carried it on down. And it's really well done. And then let's listen to what the melody, again, I'm focusing now on the technical musical element here, because it struck me when I first listened to it, but I wanted to save till I got to the end. The way the melody is shaped there, and the way it answers its own self. Yeah, so it's going bum, bum, bum. And then we expect to have yet another bum, bum, but instead it goes bum, bum, bum. And it's this fabulous little variation. But then listen what happens next. Okay, we'll back up. We'll go on through that. There's the same 3-step down. And so, what we have is this stepping down. 1, 2, 3. And then we have this bum, bum, bum. Then we have 1, 2, 3. And then, instead of bum, bum, bum again, we have 1, 2, 3, going up, up, up instead of down, which it's just a very, very little moment in the song. And I wanted to point it out because it's one of the few moments in the song where there is a very easily explained technical element that does an incredible job in that moment. Now, I don't mean that the rest of it doesn't have technical elements as well, but they're a little bit trickier to express. And I wanted to point this one out because I think we can all hear it and I think we can all appreciate it and enjoy it. This stepping down, as I said, it's the descent from the peak, the climax of where the guitar took us. But then rather than simply letting that be the only climax, the voice takes it over seamlessly and carries it on and builds it up even more so that the actual climax of what I might say the guitar solo is actually sung by the voice. And it's such a beautiful marriage of musical technique and musicianship and artistry. And it was probably the most outstanding moment of the whole song for me in that regard. When it came, I recognized it, I enjoyed it, and I wanted to make sure that I shared it with you because very often we listen to music and we just enjoy it and we let it sink into ourselves and as we should, right? But then it's always nice to understand a little bit about the how and the why and the what that is happening to us as we experience this. And because this song is so much about the voice, it's a bit unfair to try to unravel it and make it all about the technical musical elements because that would be really looking in the wrong place. I want to stress again, this is about the voice. The voice is incredible, and the voice is what makes this song what it is. But even so, there has to be some really fine musical design qualities in order for the voice to be able to do what it does. And this is one of those moments in the song where you can see it all, you can catch it all, and it's all compacted together in this wonderful little moment. Now, one other thing that I noticed going on, and it was so funny because the first time I listened through, I made the comment that the instruments are this ocean, and then the voice is this ship or this boat traveling, and we're focusing on the ship. And then it wasn't long after that, as I continued listening, the voice disappeared for quite some time, and it was just the instruments. And I was thinking, did I speak too soon? But I don't think I spoke too soon. I still stand by that statement. But as I was listening to it, I was thinking about how if we take this image of the ocean and a ship, then as the voice becomes silent for a minute, it is where we are looking away from the ship to appreciate the vast expanse of the ocean, the experience of life. And if we take the lyrics of the song, which are talking about really quite a bad situation, it's a relationship which is incredibly unhealthy and dangerous, and at the same time, obviously very passionate and attractive for whatever reason. And sometimes we get into these situations in our lives, We know something's not good for us, but we have this relationship with it. There's a magnetic pull towards it. And here, in this song, we have a moment towards the end where we can kind of step back. The music helps us step back and meditate on this whole idea of, all right, this is our whole life experience before us. This is everything that plays into this picture. This is all of who we've been and what we will be. This is the field on the sea on which we're traveling. And we're not necessarily looking at the course of the ship in that moment. We're looking out away, trying to get a perspective, trying to get our bearings, and to reassess so that we understand better where we really are in this experience. And I guess that happens right about here, I think. Again, the guitar helps take the place of the voice.
Ain't nobody's business.
But then it's back to the instruments again. And the voice comes in again.
Ain't nobody business.
Now here, as the voice is whispering and saying these last parts of the song, you hear the passion and the depth of feeling. But it's as if the instruments are still making us look at really where is this taking us, and is this where we really choose to go? So we come to the end and we recognize very clearly that we are under the spell of this attraction. It never tells us what's going to happen in the future. It's all about this experience here and now. Are we going to stay under this spell? Or are we going to, at some point in the future, say, I've had enough, let's move on? But it just is such a fabulous encapsulation of this kind of relationship and this kind of life experience. And I think it's incredibly well done. Of course, as I said at the beginning, I know that this is a fairly modern song in terms of timeline. 90s and 2000s. That's my lifetime. And at the same time, it goes so far back and digs into the blues tradition so strongly, I begin to question, is this rock at this point? Or is it a modern take on blues? And I guess I don't know enough to be able to say one way or the other. Perhaps because of the guitar and the heavy percussion, we could call it rock. But at the same time, it is so much blues that my first impression would not be to call it rock. Of course, I've heard the term blues rock. So maybe that's what we call this? I don't know. But it is a beautiful piece of music, and it beautifully does the job that it sets out to do. And I hope that you can understand a bit now why it does and why it's all about the voice. Will I listen to it again? Probably yes, because it tells the story in a beautiful way, and it is musically beautiful from my perspective. So there we go. My first exposure to Beth Hart. Maybe I'll have to explore her a bit more. And that is Caught Out in the Rain, and I'll see you soon.